As we start the new year, we do not have the statistics yet for the full range of last year's sales, but I think it's clear that the total number of sales and their dollar volume exceeds, perhaps by quite a bit, the sales of 2018, which was our very best year. At the end of 2018, literally on 12/31, it was as though somebody put a brake and completely stopped the market. And the following year's volume was much reduced. And then last year's was reduced even further by a lot of the issues relating to COVID. So we've had this pretty astonishing year. If you go back and review the things that I've said over the last year and a half or two, I'm pretty much somewhere between completely wrong and largely wrong on sort of everything. The market has returned strongly. There is probably a significant overhang of properties that were for sale a year or two ago and have been removed from the market and either have been forgotten about or are pocket listings for agents. So there's a little bit of an overhang in the inventory. But in general, the market is really moving. There have been quite a number of full price offers. I know of at least two cases where people have made full price offers and lost the house. And we see a pretty high level of activity. Now, whether this year has just been a catch up for the COVID year or whether this is the beginning of a real serious push over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll have to see. I don't think we can really know that for at least 6 more months. But I suspect that a lot of this is driven by two issues. One is that there has been this astonishing rise of violence in the U.S. And the kind of perceived risk that there may be more violence. And then also by the fact that home prices in the U.S. are just really out of control. I mean, they're rising at astonishing rates. And I think if you've lived long enough to see this happen a time or two or three before, you know that this will not last. So if your home has gone up 20% a year for the last 3 or 4 years, do not imagine that it will go up 20% a year for the next 3 or 4 years, because houses really cannot go up faster than people's ability to pay for them for very long. So undoubtedly, we have clients here who have sold or are in the process of selling their homes and condos and things for astonishing prices. And then when they see what those prices, what $400,000 for an apartment in Chicago will get you here, then all of a sudden we look very attractive. And of course, the traditional issues of how low property taxes are, how low utilities are, and what the overall carrying costs of a home over time, whether it's as a full-time residence or part-time residence or just as an investment, is really very attractive. So if you are interested in looking, if it has seemed to you that this is a good possibility for you, I would strongly suggest that you make plans to visit us next year. Probably the sooner the better. And if you need groundwork or want to do research, you should be working on that right away. I think that we've had a lot of the COVID fallout that you have seen in your own communities. Many restaurants have closed. Many new ones are opening. A lot of things are changing. We have a number of new hotels coming in general, I think as COVID goes away, we will return to something like a normal or strong market. Mexico's COVID numbers are not rising. Omicron's infections are, but numbers are not rising. Mexico has followed some of the practices of Uttar Pradesh in India and is giving out ivermectin in Mexico City, and that seems to be astonishingly effective. So, if you want to look, I would suggest that you look soon. And for whatever it's worth, if you have a house in the U.S. and you know that you are likely to be selling in the next 2 or 3 years, I would really suggest that you sell now and rent, because this is a very overheated and frothy market. And these stories we hear of, 11 offers above list price and so on, is always the sign that this will end soon. And of course, there are many complications in current administration and the rise of inflation and just an awful lot of scary things. So if you think you'd like to be down here, I really would suggest that you move on it. And if you look at my videos in the past, they've been a little bit more lukewarm and more along the lines of you've got plenty of time, so, do whatever you need to do. But I'm officially signaling that seems like markets are really moving. If this, normally January, February, and March are our biggest months, if this activity continues through these winter months, then I think we will see significant price increases and a significant number of the inventory absorbed by these buyers. So if you look back through all of my videos addressing this, I've been mostly wrong to one degree or the other, and perhaps I'm wrong about this, but this is just my perception of this at the moment. And I also want to say something about crime, because that seems to come up in discussions regularly. I was working with a client who came to meet a Mexican family who've owned their homes for 45 years, and they told her of this terrible crime and that she absolutely should not buy this year and so on. And I am always sort of surprised by that, because I want to say, well, if you think it's really terribly dangerous to be here, why are you here? And if you've owned a house for 45 years, I can promise you that this is pretty close to the best market you have ever had. So if you feel this is a wildly dangerous place, really you should sell your house, and please contact me and I'll be happy to take the listing. And I've had some of this, I've heard stories of this before, of people buying a wonderful $1 million home and signing the paperwork and then having a drink in a bar in the Live Aqua Hotel and having someone say, "Oh my God, this is happening and you should never be buying," and then walking out on the deal. And I never quite know what to say. I believe that I am probably more likely at risk of some kind of crime than I was when I lived in Houston, and also when I lived in Los Angeles. And some of that was because I lived in very, very upscale neighborhoods there. And I know of really almost no crime here. I had one friend from some years ago who was the victim of a crime, and I know people who had a house or two broken into. Mexico has some of these same issues that you are seeing rising in San Francisco and other places, where you have to steal more than $1,500 to, get a serious charge. and I just really don't know what to say. I mean, overwhelmingly, the crime is bad guy against bad guy. Narcos are not interested in crime. Narcos are interested in moving their drug products to the United States. If you get in the way of their doing that, you can be the recipient of crime. But what could I possibly do? What have I possibly done? In what way have I possibly obstructed any narco anywhere? So the terrible things that have happened in this country, some of them on YouTube, some of them live, uh, some murdered narcos hanging from overpasses, though not here, but that has happened in this country. I mean, those are all things to just shut all this down. It's, you know, if a rival gang challenges an existing narco organization, they will put them down in a terrible way. This is not not unlike Prohibition and Al Capone and the Valentine's Day massacre and all of the things that are farther back in our history. Though I know that when I was a kid, there were people paying protection money in New Orleans to the mob, um, and so I don't feel in any way afraid. I have no friends that feel in any way afraid. I am perhaps more aware of what's going on than I might have been when I lived in the west side of Houston. Um, but I just don't think this is an issue. This is bad guy on bad guy crime. It's fallen pretty dramatically in Guanajuato over the last 18 months. A lot of that I think is COVID related, and we had at one point heard that, you know, there were a couple of well-known bad guys who had contracted COVID. Um, but I think overwhelmingly, if you sampled 1,000 people who lived here, you would find that they are not afraid. And I would not generally suggest to anyone that they walk around town at 3 o'clock in the morning drunk, though I have done that and may do that again. But I just don't understand really the whole thing. I mean, if you to be here and experience this and to shop and walk around the center and drive in the country, I don't think you would feel, uh, you know, any real level of concern. But there are people who do, and for sure, all of this has been publicized extensively in the United States. I have a friend who has begun every conversation with me for 18 years with, Ben, aren't you afraid? And no, I'm not. And I am aware of certain things. I mean, I know someone who's carjacked, and they you know, went to a equivalent of a 7-Eleven at 11 o'clock at night with an older guy, an older woman, and a 10-year-old kid, and drove away from the 7-Eleven and were followed. I, you know, wouldn't go to a 7-Eleven at 11 o'clock at night. And if I did, I would be very aware and get away as quickly as possible. One tip is, in almost every story that has been published about this, the people begin by saying, we were driving slowly. So my one part of advice here is, don't ever drive slowly. When you leave somewhere, move, and move as fast as you can, and pay attention to what's going on. But anyway, I don't know. I'm just rambling here, but I would certainly recommend to any of my friends or family that they live here. live in the country and I feel completely safe. I do have dogs, and I have four, and I probably have embraced that more generously because I appreciate their barking and their awareness and all of that they add to the house, especially when I'm gone. Um, but otherwise, I think this is an amazing community, and I know a whole range of people. Some of them who are really trying to live on their Social Security, and others who come back and forth in their own planes, and they seem to find great happiness here, and I certainly have. And I think for an enormous number of reasons, if you are looking for a full time place, this is one of your best choices in the world. If you are just going to be a winter only resident, then you should definitely be looking at Puerto Vallarta and perhaps other places. But we are now we have, in theory, we have the possibility of freezing from the last week of November to the first week in February. And as of this filming, we have not yet had freezing. So I believe we're going to have a wonderfully mild winter, and I won't have to cover any plants, and it will be excellent. But anyway, my advice to you is, if you're interested, look. If you feel you need to do more research, do it. If you are imagining that you are going to take some action in the next couple of years, take it, because I believe that when I talk to you about this 3 months from now or 6 months from now, that it will be pretty clear that the market has moved. And some of the other videos that I've done in the past saying it will take 2 or 3 years for the market to come back into balance have just been wrong, at least from the perspective of today. I was just much more negative than I should have been. So I wish you all a wonderful 2022. The last 2 years have been pretty difficult for so many people around the world. And we've gotten off very easily for a number of reasons, but I just wish you all an amazingly wonderful year. And if any part of that year involves San Miguel, I urge you to act now. Even the rentals are pretty tight because there are so many people down here. I presume a chunk of them will become buyers or long-term renters or something. Some of them may just be fleeing the United States for a warm, well-ventilated, low COVID kind of environment. I wouldn't want to spend the winter in New York or Chicago. But it's all pretty great. So I highly recommend that if this is on your radar, that you take some action in coming weeks and months. And other than that, God bless you. And, I hope you just have the most wonderful 2022.